During his watch, as President Reagan liked to call his terms in office, there was nothing he wanted more than to lessen the risk of nuclear war. Our relationship with the Soviet Union was based on détente, a French word Reagan felt the Russians had interpreted as the freedom to pursue whatever policies of subversion, aggression, and expansion they wanted anywhere in the world. Every Soviet leader since Lenin had said the goal of the Soviet Union was to spread communism throughout the world. During the post-war years, America repeatedly stood up to the threat of Soviet expansionism, going to the far corners of the world to defend freedom. With the breathtaking events that have occurred in Eastern Europe since then, it's easy to forget what the world was like in the spring of 1981. The Soviets were more dedicated than ever to achieving Lenin's goal of a one-world communist state. Under the so-called Brezhnev Doctrine, they claimed the right to support wars of national liberation anywhere in the world and to suppress through armed intervention any challenge to communist governments anywhere in the world. In El Salvador, Angola, Ethiopia, Cambodia, and elsewhere, the Soviets and their surrogates, Cuba, Nicaragua, Libya, and Syria, were seeking to destroy non-communist governments through campaigns of subversion and terrorism. In Afghanistan, they were brutally trying to suppress a revolt against communist rule with tanks and rockets. In Poland, they were responding to the tentative stirrings of a democratic movement with ominous hints of an invasion.
By the middle of the 80s, 1985, 1986, we will clearly be second in military power to the Soviet Union, with all of the consequences that would entail for our security, the cohesion of our alliances, and the worldwide protection of our own interests.
While the Soviets had built new warships, missiles, bombers, and other weapons, we had done nothing to modernize our strategic forces.
The Soviet Union has been engaged in the greatest military buildup in the history of man. And it cannot be described as necessary for their defense. It is plainly a buildup that is offensive in nature.
As the foundation of his foreign policy, the President decided to send a powerful message to the Russians that we weren't going to stand by anymore.
I know of no leader of the Soviet Union since the revolution, including the present leadership, that has not more than once repeated in the various communist congresses they hold their determination that their goal must be the promotion of world revolution.
President Reagan wanted peace through strength, not peace through a piece of paper. In his speeches and press conferences, he deliberately set out to say some frank things about the Russians.
Let us be aware that while they preach the supremacy of the state, declare its omnipotence over individual man, and predict its eventual domination of all peoples on the earth, they are the focus of evil in the modern world.
In addition to sending out the word that the U.S. was dealing with the Soviet Union from a new basis of realism, Reagan wanted to let them know he realized that the nuclear standoff was dangerous for all of us, and we had no designs on their territories. The President said they had nothing to fear from us if they behaved themselves. His dream became a world free of nuclear weapons. Reagan realized that no one could win a nuclear war, and one must never be fought.
It is inconceivable to me that we can go on thinking down the future, not only for ourselves in our lifetime, but for other generations, that the great nations of the world will sit here like people facing themselves across a table, each with a cocked gun, and no one knowing whether someone might tighten their finger on the trigger.
A certain amount of mythology evolved around the President's Strategic Defense Initiative, which he announced in 1983 to develop a defensive shield against nuclear missiles.
Let me share with you a vision of the future which offers hope. It is that we embark on a program to counter the awesome Soviet missile threat with measures that are defensive. What if free people could live secure in the knowledge that their security did not rest upon the threat of instant U.S. retaliation to deter a Soviet attack, that we could intercept and destroy strategic ballistic missiles before they reached our own soil or that of our allies? I call upon the scientific community in our country, those who gave us nuclear weapons, to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace, to give us the means of rendering these nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete.